The warm California sun shone down on Riverside Park in downtown Los Angeles. It was a peaceful Tuesday afternoon around 3 o'clock. Families walked their children along the smooth pathways while joggers ran past the green grass areas. The sound of birds singing filled the air as people enjoyed the beautiful day. Robert Martinez sat on his favorite wooden bench near the coffee cart. He was 72 years old with gray hair and kind eyes behind his glasses. Every day for the past 5 years, he came to this same spot with his golden retriever Charlie. The old man loved watching people walk by while Charlie slept peacefully beside him. Charlie was 8 years old with beautiful golden fur that shined in the sunlight. He had been Robert's best friend ever since his wife, Maria, passed away from cancer. The dog never left Robert's side and brought joy to the lonely man's life. Charlie loved coming to the park because children would pet him, and he could smell all the interesting scents from the food vendors. On this particular day, Robert decided to buy his usual coffee from Tony, the cart owner. He tied Charlie's blue leash to the bench and told his dog to stay put. Charlie was well trained and never wandered off. He curled up under the shade of the bench and closed his eyes for a nap. The gentle breeze made his fur move slightly as he breathed slowly and peacefully. 3 young men walked into the park from the street corner. They were in their early 20s and had been drinking beer all afternoon. Jake was the leader with messy brown hair and tattoos covering his arms. His friends Mike and Danny followed him everywhere looking for trouble. They had already caused problems at 2 other locations that day. The trio stumbled slightly as they walked past the playground area. Their loud voices disturbed the peaceful atmosphere as other park visitors moved away from them. Jake noticed Charlie sleeping alone by the bench and pointed him out to his friends. A cruel smile spread across his face as an evil idea formed in his mind. Danny pulled out his phone and started recording as they approached the innocent dog. Charlie opened his eyes when he heard their footsteps getting closer. The dog sensed something was wrong and tried to move away, but the leash kept him tied to the bench. His tail went between his legs as fear filled his gentle brown eyes. Jake picked up a handful of dirt and threw it at Charlie's face. The dog shook his head and whimpered softly. Mike laughed loudly and grabbed a small stick from the ground. He poked Charlie in the side, making the dog yelp in pain and confusion. The poor animal tried to hide under the bench, but there was nowhere to escape. The 3 bullies surrounded Charlie and began their cruel attack. They kicked dirt at him and threw small rocks that hit his body. Jake found a larger stick and hit Charlie on his back leg. The dog cried out in pain as tears formed in his eyes. He had never been hurt by humans before and could not understand why these men were being so mean to him. Danny kept filming everything on his phone while laughing at Charlie's suffering. They planned to post the video online to get likes and comments from other cruel people. Mike grabbed Charlie's collar and shook him roughly while Jake continued hitting him with the stick. The dog's painful cries echoed through the park. Several people nearby noticed what was happening but felt too scared to help. The 3 men looked dangerous and aggressive. An elderly woman called out asking them to stop, but they just laughed at her. A young father quickly walked his children away from the scene, not wanting them to witness such cruelty. Charlie lay on the ground trembling with fear and pain as the attack continued. His beautiful golden fur was now dirty and his body ached from the hits. He looked around desperately, hoping his beloved owner Robert would return soon to save him from these terrible men. Margaret Thompson sat on a bench 40 feet away from where Charlie was being attacked. She was 80 years old and used a walking cane to get around. Her heart broke as she watched the 3 young men hurt the innocent dog. She tried standing up to help, but her old legs were too weak to move quickly. Margaret called out in her shaky voice, asking the men to please stop hurting the poor animal. Jake turned around and glared at her with angry eyes. He told her in a rude voice to mind her own business, or they might come for her next. The old woman felt scared and helpless as she gripped her cane tighter. A jogger named David was running his usual route through the park when he heard Charlie crying. He slowed down and saw what was happening to the dog. David wanted to help, but he was alone against 3 aggressive men. He thought about his wife and 2 young children at home and worried about getting hurt. David kept running but felt guilty about leaving the dog behind. Two teenage girls named Sarah and Emma were sitting on the grass eating lunch. They both loved animals and had dogs at home. When they saw Charlie being attacked, their eyes filled with tears. Sarah pulled out her phone to call the police, but Emma grabbed her arm. She was afraid the three men might hurt them if they tried to help. A maintenance worker named Carlos was picking up trash near the playground. He watched the cruel scene unfold and felt anger building in his chest. Carlos had a German Shepherd at home and could not stand seeing any animal suffer. He started walking toward the three bullies but stopped when Jake picked up a bigger stick and waved it in the air threateningly. Near the coffee cart, a young mother named Lisa held her 5-year-old son Tommy close to her chest. Tommy asked why the men were being mean to the doggy. Lisa turned his head away from the scene and whispered that some people do bad things. She wanted to help but was too scared with her small child there. An older man named Frank sat in his wheelchair reading a newspaper. He was a Vietnam War veteran who had seen many terrible things in his life. Frank watched the attack on Charlie and felt sick to his stomach. He tried wheeling his chair closer, but the three bullies saw him coming. Mike told him to stay away unless he wanted his wheelchair pushed into the pond. A group of college students were playing frisbee when they noticed the commotion. One of them, named Kevin, started walking over to help, but his friends held him back. They reminded him that the three men looked drunk and dangerous. Kevin felt like a coward, but did not want to risk getting seriously hurt. Robert was still at the coffee cart talking to Tony about the weather. The cart was located behind a row of trees, so he could not see what was happening to Charlie. Tony was busy making coffee and did not notice the trouble either. Robert took his time choosing which pastry to buy, completely unaware that his best friend was suffering. The few people who had phones out were too scared to record the attack. They worried that the three bullies might take their phones or hurt them too. Everyone felt helpless watching an innocent animal being tortured by cruel humans. The normal sounds of the park were replaced by Charlie's painful cries and the bullies' evil laughter. A security guard named James worked at the park, but he was on the far side dealing with a broken sprinkler. He could not hear what was happening because of the distance and the sound of water spraying everywhere. James had no idea that his help was desperately needed on the other side of the park. More people began to notice the disturbance as Charlie's cries got louder. Parents quickly walked their children away from the area while couples changed direction to avoid the violence. Everyone felt sorry for the dog, but no one knew how to help without making the situation worse. The three bullies grew more confident, seeing that nobody would challenge them. They became bolder in their attack on poor Charlie, who was now lying on his side breathing heavily. His golden fur was covered in dirt, and his eyes showed pure terror and confusion. The dog had never experienced such cruelty from humans before. Jake laughed as he kicked more dirt at Charlie's face, while Mike continued poking him with the stick. Danny kept recording everything, planning to share the video with his friends later. They had no idea that their cruel actions were about to be interrupted by someone who would not walk away from injustice. A sleek black Range Rover drove slowly down the street next to Riverside Park. The windows were tinted dark, so nobody could see who was inside. The expensive car moved quietly through the afternoon traffic as the driver looked for a parking spot. The engine made a low rumbling sound that caught the attention of a few people walking on the sidewalk. Inside the vehicle sat Jason Statham, the famous action movie star. He wore a simple black t-shirt and dark jeans with comfortable sneakers. His bald head reflected the sunlight coming through the windshield. Jason had been driving through Los Angeles after finishing a meeting with his agent about his next film project. Jason was not trying to draw attention to himself that day. He often drove around the city to clear his mind and think about his upcoming roles. The actor enjoyed the peaceful moments when he could just be a regular person instead of a celebrity. He had his windows down slightly to enjoy the warm California air. As Jason drove past the park, he heard a sound that made him immediately concerned. It was the painful crying of an animal mixed with cruel human laughter. The sound cut through his heart like a knife, because Jason had always loved animals. He grew up with dogs and cats and could not stand seeing any creature suffer. Jason quickly pulled his Range Rover to the curb and turned off the engine. He sat for a moment listening to make sure he had heard correctly. The sounds were definitely coming from inside the park, and they were getting worse. Someone was hurting an animal and other people were laughing about it. The actor stepped out of his car and locked the doors with his key remote. He was not very tall, but his muscular build and confident posture made him look powerful. Jason had spent years training in martial arts for his movie roles, and the discipline showed in the way he carried himself. His face was serious and focused as he walked toward the park entrance. Jason moved with purpose but did not rush. He had learned from his action movie training to stay calm in tense situations. His sharp eyes scanned the park, looking for the source of the animal sounds. He could see people scattered around the area, but many of them looked uncomfortable and were facing away from something. As Jason walked deeper into the park, the sounds became clearer. He could hear a dog whimpering in pain and fear. There were also voices of young men laughing and making cruel jokes. The actor felt his jaw tighten with anger, but he kept his emotions under control. He knew that losing his temper would not help the situation. Margaret Thompson was the first person to notice Jason walking through the park. She recognized his famous face immediately, but was too focused on worrying about Charlie to say anything. Margaret felt a small spark of hope seeing someone new arrive who might be able to help the poor dog. Jason followed the sounds until he could see what was happening near the bench. 3 young men were surrounding a golden retriever that was tied up and could not escape. The dog was lying on the ground covered in dirt, while the men continued their attack. The sight made Jason feel sick with anger and disgust. The actor stopped about 20 feet away from the scene and observed the situation carefully. He could see that the dog was hurt and terrified, while the 3 bullies were enjoying themselves. Jason noticed that several other people were watching, but none of them were helping the poor animal. He realized that everyone was too scared to stand up to the aggressive young men. Jason took a deep breath and began walking directly toward the 3 bullies. His footsteps were quiet but determined as he approached the cruel scene. The actor had played heroes in dozens of movies, but this was real life, and an innocent animal needed his help. He felt the same protective instinct that had made him famous for playing tough guys who fought for justice. Some of the park visitors began to notice the well-dressed man walking toward the trouble. A few people recognized Jason from his movies, but most were too focused on the drama unfolding to pay attention. The college students playing frisbee stopped their game and watched as the mysterious stranger approached the dangerous situation. Jason was now close enough to hear everything the 3 bullies were saying. Their words were cruel and heartless as they made fun of Charlie's pain and fear. The actor felt his hands clench into fists, but he forced himself to stay calm. He knew that the next few minutes would determine whether this innocent dog lived or suffered even more. Jason walked steadily toward the 3 bullies without making any noise. His black sneakers moved silently across the grass as he got closer to where Charlie was suffering. The actor kept his face calm, but his eyes showed determination and controlled anger. He had dealt with bad guys in movies, but this was real life, and much more serious. Jake was the first to notice Jason approaching them. He looked up from kicking dirt at Charlie and saw a bald man in a black t-shirt walking their way. At first, Jake thought it might be another scared park visitor who would turn around and leave, but something about this man's confident walk made Jake feel slightly nervous. Mike stopped poking Charlie with his stick and nudged Danny to look at the stranger coming toward them. Danny was still recording everything on his phone when he turned around and saw Jason. His mouth dropped open because he immediately recognized the famous action star from movies like The Transporter and Fast and Furious. Jason stopped about 6 feet away from the 3 young men and looked down at poor Charlie. The dog was breathing heavily and shaking with fear and pain. His beautiful golden fur was dirty and matted with tears in his eyes. The sight made Jason feel a deep anger in his chest, but he kept his voice steady and controlled. "What do you think you are doing?" Jason asked in his distinctive British accent. His voice was not loud, but it carried authority and strength that made all three bullies stop what they were doing. The other park visitors who were watching from a distance could hear the seriousness in his tone. Jake tried to act tough because he did not want to look weak in front of his friends. He laughed nervously and told Jason they were just having some fun with a stupid dog. Mike and Danny giggled, but their laughter sounded forced and uncomfortable. They were beginning to realize they might be in serious trouble. Jason looked directly at Jake with cold eyes that showed no fear or hesitation. The actor had stared down villains in dozens of movies, but this was not acting. He was genuinely angry at these cowards who were hurting a defenseless animal. Jason took one step closer, which made all three bullies take a step backward. "This is not fun," Jason said firmly. "This is cruelty to an innocent animal who cannot defend himself. You three are acting like cowards picking on someone who cannot fight back." His words cut through the air like a knife and made several watching people nod their heads in agreement. Danny was so nervous that his hands shook while holding his phone. He recognized Jason from all his tough guy movies and knew the actor had trained in martial arts. Danny tried to whisper to his friends that they should leave, but Jake was too proud and drunk to listen to reason. Jake puffed out his chest and stepped forward, trying to intimidate Jason. He was younger and taller than the actor, but Jason did not move or show any fear. Jake told Jason to mind his own business, or maybe they would have some fun with him too. This was exactly the wrong thing to say to someone who had spent years learning how to fight. The watching crowd held their breath as tension filled the air between Jason and the three bullies. Margaret gripped her walking cane tighter while the college students moved closer to see what would happen next. Everyone could feel that something big was about to occur. Jason remained perfectly calm as Jake tried to stare him down. The actor had faced much scarier opponents in his movies, and these three drunk young men did not frighten him at all. Jason could see that they were cowards who only picked on those weaker than themselves. Now they were about to face someone who would not back down. Mike still held the stick he had been using to hurt Charlie. He waved it in the air, trying to look threatening, but his hands were shaking with nervousness. Mike had never been in a real fight and was beginning to wish they had never started hurting the dog in the first place. "You have 3 seconds to walk away," Jason said quietly, but with steel in his voice. His muscles tensed slightly as he prepared for what might happen next. The actor knew these bullies would probably not leave peacefully because they were too proud and stupid to make the smart choice. Jake made the biggest mistake of his life by swinging his fist at Jason. The punch was slow and clumsy because Jake was drunk and not a real fighter. Jason had been expecting this move and was ready to show these cruel young men what real strength looked like when used to protect the innocent. Jake threw his punch at Jason, but the actor was ready for it. Jason had trained with professional fight coordinators for years, and his reflexes were lightning fast. He easily moved his head to the side, and Jake's fist sailed harmlessly through the air. The drunk young man stumbled forward because he had put all his weight behind the missed punch. Jason did not need to throw a single punch to handle Jake. Instead, he used Jake's own momentum against him, just like in his movie fight scenes. Jason grabbed Jake's arm as he stumbled and helped him fall faster toward the ground. Jake landed hard on his back, and the wind was knocked out of his lungs. Mike saw his friend go down and panicked. He raised the stick he had been using to hurt Charlie and tried to hit Jason with it. But Jason was much faster and more skilled than these amateur bullies. The actor caught Mike's wrist before the stick could reach him and applied just enough pressure to make Mike drop the weapon. Jason twisted Mike's arm behind his back, using a move he had learned from professional stunt coordinators. Mike cried out in pain and found himself face down on the grass next to his friend Jake. Jason held him there firmly, but did not hurt him more than necessary to stop the threat. Danny was still holding his phone and recording everything that was happening. His hand shook so badly that the video was bouncing all over the place. Danny realized he should run, but his legs felt frozen with fear. He had never seen anyone move as fast and smoothly as Jason had just done. Jason looked at Danny with calm but serious eyes. The actor did not need to say anything because his expression made it clear that Danny should not try anything stupid. Danny slowly put his phone in his pocket and raised his hands to show he was not going to fight. He was much smarter than his two friends. The entire confrontation had lasted less than 30 seconds. Jason had neutralized two attackers without breaking a sweat or even breathing hard. The watching crowd erupted in applause and cheers as they realized the bullies had been stopped. Margaret clapped her hands together and said thank goodness under her breath. Jake struggled to sit up from the ground while gasping for air. His face was red with embarrassment and anger at being defeated so easily. Mike was still lying face down with his arm twisted behind his back, whimpering about the pain. Both young men realized they had made a terrible mistake picking this fight. Jason kept one eye on the three defeated bullies while he pulled out his cell phone. He dialed 911 and told the operator that he needed police at Riverside Park for an animal cruelty incident. Jason gave his name and location while making sure none of the three men tried to escape. The college students who had been playing frisbee came closer now that it was safe. They told Jason they had seen everything and would be happy to give statements to the police. Several other witnesses also approached, offering to help make sure the bullies faced justice for what they had done to Charlie. David, the jogger who had kept running earlier, felt ashamed of himself for not helping. He came back and apologized to Jason for being a coward. Jason told him not to worry about it, and that the important thing was that Charlie was safe now. The actor understood that not everyone could handle dangerous situations. Danny started crying and begging Jason not to call the police. He said they were just drunk and did not mean to hurt the dog so badly. Jason looked at him with disgust and explained that being drunk was no excuse for cruelty. He told Danny that actions have consequences and they would have to face them. Jake tried to stand up and run away, but Jason moved to block his path. The actor did not touch Jake again, but his presence was enough to keep the bully from escaping. Jake realized he was trapped and sat back down on the grass to wait for the police to arrive. Mike finally stopped whimpering and rolled over to look at Jason. He asked if Jason was really the famous action star from the movies. Jason nodded but said that did not matter right now. What mattered was that they had hurt an innocent animal for their own entertainment, and that was unforgivable. The sound of police sirens could be heard in the distance, getting closer to the park. Jason felt satisfied that justice would be served, but his main concern was still poor Charlie. The dog was lying under the bench, still shaking with fear and pain from his ordeal. Jason knew he needed to get Charlie medical attention as soon as possible. Margaret slowly walked over using her cane and thanked Jason for stepping in when nobody else would. She said Charlie was lucky that Jason had been driving by the park at just the right moment. Jason smiled at the elderly woman and said he was glad he could help protect an innocent creature from these cruel bullies. While they waited for the police to arrive, Jason's first concern was checking on poor Charlie. The golden retriever was still lying under the bench, trembling with fear and pain. His beautiful fur was dirty and matted, and his brown eyes showed confusion about why humans had hurt him so badly. Jason approached Charlie very slowly and carefully. He knew that traumatized animals could be unpredictable and might bite if they felt cornered. Jason crouched down about 3 feet away from the dog and spoke in a soft, gentle voice. He told Charlie that he was safe now and that the bad men could not hurt him anymore. Charlie lifted his head slightly when he heard Jason's kind voice. The dog had never heard this man speak before, but something about his calm tone made Charlie feel a little less scared. Jason extended his hand palm up so Charlie could smell his scent and decide if he was a friend or another threat. The actor had grown up with dogs and cats, so he understood how to communicate with frightened animals. Jason sat down on the grass to make himself less intimidating and continued speaking softly to Charlie. He told the dog what a good boy he was, and that help was coming soon to make him feel better. Charlie slowly stretched his neck forward and sniffed Jason's hand. The dog could sense that this human was different from the three who had hurt him. Jason's scent was calm and kind without the smell of alcohol and anger that had come from his attackers. Charlie decided this new person might be safe. Jason very gently reached out and touched Charlie's head with just his fingertips. The dog flinched at first, but then realized the touch was soft and caring. Jason began petting Charlie's fur very lightly while continuing to speak in soothing tones. He could feel the dog's body slowly starting to relax under his gentle touch. As Jason examined Charlie more closely, he could see several injuries from the attack. There were small cuts where the rocks had hit him and bruises forming under his fur. Charlie's left back leg seemed to be causing him pain when he tried to move it. Jason was worried that the leg might be sprained or even broken. Margaret watched from nearby as the famous action star showed incredible tenderness with the injured dog. She had seen Jason's movies where he played tough guys who fought criminals, but this gentle side of him was even more impressive. Margaret realized that real strength meant protecting those who could not protect themselves. Robert finally finished buying his coffee and pastry from Tony's cart. He walked back toward his bench, expecting to find Charlie taking his usual afternoon nap. Instead, Robert saw a crowd of people gathered around his bench with police sirens getting louder in the distance. His heart filled with worry as he hurried toward the commotion. When Robert got closer, he could see his beloved Charlie lying on the ground, with a strange man kneeling beside him. Robert's eyes filled with tears as he realized something terrible had happened to his best friend. He rushed forward, calling Charlie's name with panic in his voice. Jason looked up and saw an elderly man with gray hair and glasses hurrying toward them. The man was calling Charlie's name with obvious love and concern in his voice. Jason immediately knew this must be the dog's owner and felt relieved that Charlie had someone who cared about him so much. Robert dropped his coffee cup and pastry as he knelt down next to Charlie. The dog's tail wagged weakly when he saw his beloved owner. Robert's hands shook as he gently touched Charlie's fur and asked what had happened to his precious companion. Tears rolled down the old man's cheeks as he saw his dog's injuries. Jason introduced himself to Robert and explained what had happened while the old man was at the coffee cart. Robert's face showed a mixture of anger and heartbreak as he learned how 3 young men had attacked his innocent dog just for their own cruel entertainment. Robert thanked Jason repeatedly for stepping in to save Charlie. Several witnesses came forward to tell Robert how Jason had arrived just in time to stop the attack from getting even worse. They explained how the 3 bullies had been hurting Charlie with sticks and rocks while recording it on their phones. Robert felt sick thinking about what could have happened if Jason had not shown up. Jason suggested they should take Charlie to a veterinarian right away to check for serious injuries. Robert nodded in agreement but worried about how to transport Charlie safely. The dog was hurt and scared and might be in too much pain to walk to Robert's old car that was parked several blocks away. Jason offered to drive Robert and Charlie to the nearest animal hospital in his Range Rover. The actor's car was parked right next to the park and would be much more comfortable for the injured dog. Robert was amazed by this famous person's kindness and generosity toward a stranger and his pet. The police cars finally arrived at the park with their red and blue lights flashing. 2 officers got out and began taking control of the scene. Jason knew he would need to give a statement about what had happened, but his priority was getting Charlie medical attention as quickly as possible. 2 police officers named Martinez and Johnson arrived at Riverside Park within minutes of Jason's call. They immediately took control of the situation and began separating the witnesses from the 3 suspects. Officer Martinez was an experienced policeman who had dealt with many animal cruelty cases over his 20-year career. Jake, Mike, and Danny sat on the grass looking defeated and embarrassed. Their earlier confidence had completely disappeared now that they faced real consequences for their actions. Jake's clothes were dirty from being knocked down, and Mike's arm was still sore from Jason's restraint technique. Danny kept staring at the ground, unable to look at anyone. Officer Johnson began taking statements from the many witnesses who had seen the attack on Charlie. Margaret told the officer everything she had observed from her bench, including how the 3 men had threatened her when she asked them to stop. The college students provided detailed accounts of the cruelty they had witnessed. David the jogger returned to give his statement and admitted he felt ashamed for not helping earlier. Officer Martinez told David that he understood civilian hesitation in dangerous situations and that the important thing was that he came back to help with the investigation. David felt better knowing he was now doing the right thing. Danny's phone was taken as evidence because it contained video recordings of the attack on Charlie. The very footage the bullies had planned to use for entertainment would now be used to prosecute them for animal cruelty. Officer Johnson told them that animal abuse was a serious felony in California with possible jail time. Several other park visitors had also recorded parts of the incident on their phones. The evidence against Jake, Mike, and Danny was overwhelming with multiple videos and numerous eyewitness accounts. The three young men realized they had no way to deny what they had done or claim it was just harmless fun. Jason gave his statement to Officer Martinez while keeping one eye on Charlie and Robert. The actor explained exactly what he had seen when he arrived and how he had intervened to stop further harm to the dog. Jason's calm professional demeanor impressed the officer who had dealt with many emotional witnesses over the years. Robert held Charlie gently in his arms while talking to a police victim advocate who specialized in animal cruelty cases. The advocate explained that Robert could seek compensation for Charlie's medical bills and that the suspects would likely face significant fines and possible jail time. Robert just wanted Charlie to get better and for justice to be served. Officer Martinez informed the three suspects of their rights and placed them under arrest for animal cruelty and disturbing the peace. Jake tried to argue that they were just drunk and didn't mean any real harm, but the officer explained that intoxication was not a legal defense for criminal behavior. Their actions had consequences regardless of their mental state. Jason approached Officer Martinez and asked if it would be okay for him to take Robert and Charlie to the veterinary hospital. The officer agreed since Jason had already given his complete statement and would be available if needed for further questions. The actor's priority was getting Charlie the medical care he desperately needed. Jason helped Robert carefully lift Charlie and carry him to the black Range Rover parked nearby. The injured dog whimpered softly but seemed to trust these two humans who were being so gentle with him. Jason opened the back door and laid down a blanket from his emergency kit to make Charlie more comfortable during the ride. Robert climbed into the back seat next to Charlie while Jason got behind the wheel. The elderly man continued petting his dog and whispering reassuring words during the short drive to Westside Animal Hospital. Jason drove carefully to avoid bumping Charlie around and causing more pain to his injuries. At the animal hospital, Jason insisted on paying for all of Charlie's medical expenses despite Robert's protests. The actor told Robert that money was not important when an innocent animal needed help. Jason had earned millions from his movies and wanted to use his wealth to help Charlie recover from this terrible experience. Sarah Chen, the veterinarian on duty, immediately took Charlie into the examination room. She was experienced with trauma cases and could see that Charlie had been through something horrible. Chen assured Robert and Jason that she would do everything possible to help Charlie heal both physically and emotionally from his ordeal. While Charlie was being examined, Jason and Robert sat in the waiting room talking about what had happened. Robert thanked Jason repeatedly for his kindness and bravery in protecting Charlie when no one else would help. The elderly man said he had lost faith in humanity until Jason showed him that good people still existed in the world. Jason told Robert that he had always loved animals and could never stand to see them suffer. The actor explained that his tough guy movie roles were just acting, but protecting innocent creatures was something he would always do in real life. Jason felt honored to have been in the right place at the right time to help Charlie. News reporters began calling the police station asking about the incident after someone posted cell phone footage on social media. The story of Jason Statham rescuing a dog from cruel bullies was starting to spread across the internet. Officer Martinez prepared a statement confirming the basic facts without going into too much detail about the ongoing investigation. Within 2 hours of the incident at Riverside Park, the story began spreading rapidly across social media platforms. Sarah, one of the college students who witnessed everything, posted a video on her Instagram account with the caption, "Real-life hero Jason Statham saves dog from cruel bullies." The video showed Jason calmly confronting the three attackers and protecting Charlie from further harm. The Instagram post was shared thousands of times within the first hour as people were amazed to see their favorite action star being the hero in real life. Comments poured in from around the world praising Jason for stepping in when others were too scared to help. Many people said the video restored their faith in humanity and showed what real courage looked like. Twitter users began sharing the story using hashtags like Jason Statham Hero and Save Charlie. Videos taken by different witnesses showed the incident from multiple angles, giving people a complete picture of what had happened. The contrast between Jason's gentle care for Charlie and his firm handling of the bullies impressed millions of viewers. Major news networks picked up the story by evening and began running segments about the incident. CNN interviewed Sarah Chen, who had treated Charlie at the animal hospital. She explained that the dog had suffered bruising and a sprained leg, but would make a full recovery thanks to the quick intervention that stopped the attack from getting worse. Entertainment Tonight contacted Jason's publicist asking for an interview about the incident. Jason agreed to speak briefly, saying that he was just doing what any decent person should do when they see an innocent animal being hurt. The actor emphasized that the real heroes were people like Robert who dedicate their lives to caring for animals in need. Animal rights organizations across the country began reaching out to thank Jason for bringing attention to the serious problem of animal cruelty. The Humane Society issued a statement praising the actor for showing that everyone has a responsibility to speak up for creatures who cannot defend themselves. They noted that many animal abuse cases go unreported because witnesses are afraid to get involved. Local news stations in Los Angeles sent reporters to Riverside Park to interview people about what had happened. Margaret, the elderly woman who had witnessed the attack, told reporters that Jason was a true gentleman who showed both strength and kindness. She said the three bullies learned an important lesson about picking on innocent creatures. The story reached international news outlets as Jason's fans around the world shared the videos and articles. British newspapers ran headlines like "Statham saves dog from bullies" and "Action hero becomes real hero." The story was particularly popular in the United Kingdom, where Jason was born and where animal welfare is taken very seriously by the public. Facebook groups dedicated to animal rescue shared the story thousands of times, encouraging their members to follow Jason's example. Many people commented that they had always admired Jason's movies, but now they respected him even more as a person. The incident showed that celebrities could use their fame and influence to make a positive difference in the world. Jake, Mike, and Danny became infamous overnight as their faces appeared in news reports and social media posts. Their families and employers saw the videos of them attacking Charlie and laughing about it. All three young men were fired from their jobs and faced serious legal consequences for their actions. Their cruel behavior had destroyed their reputations and their futures. The Los Angeles Animal Services Department reported a surge in donations and volunteer applications from people inspired by Jason's actions. Director Linda Rodriguez said the incident reminded people that animal cruelty happens every day and that ordinary citizens can make a difference by speaking up and getting involved when they witness abuse. Westside Animal Hospital, where Charlie was treated, received hundreds of phone calls from people asking about the dog's condition and offering to help with his medical bills. Sarah Chen told reporters that the outpouring of support showed how much people cared about animal welfare and wanted to help creatures who had been hurt by human cruelty. Online forums dedicated to Jason's movies filled with discussions about the incident. Fans said they were proud that their favorite action star was the same kind of hero in real life as he played on screen. Many people said the story made them want to be more aware of animal abuse in their own communities and to speak up when they witnessed cruelty. 3 weeks after the incident at Riverside Park, Charlie had made a complete recovery from his physical injuries. His golden fur had grown back beautifully, and his sprained leg was completely healed. More importantly, Charlie's emotional wounds were also healing thanks to the love and care from Robert and the new friendship he had formed with Jason. Jason kept his promise to visit Charlie and Robert regularly at the park. Every few days, the famous actor would arrive in his Range Rover carrying treats for Charlie and often bringing coffee for Robert from their favorite cart. The unlikely trio had formed a genuine bond that went far beyond the dramatic circumstances of their first meeting. Charlie always got excited when he saw Jason approaching. The dog would wag his tail enthusiastically and run to greet his protector with happy barks and jumps. Jason would kneel down and let Charlie lick his face while telling the dog what a good boy he was. The transformation from the terrified animal Jason had first met was remarkable and heartwarming. Robert treasured these visits from Jason because the actor had become like a son to him. The elderly man had been lonely since his wife Maria passed away, but now he had two companions who brought joy to his daily routine. Robert often joked that Charlie had the most famous bodyguard in Hollywood protecting him during their park visits. During their conversations, Jason and Robert discovered they had much in common despite their very different backgrounds. Both men valued loyalty, kindness, and standing up for those who could not protect themselves. Robert shared stories about his late wife and his years working as a school teacher, while Jason talked about his movie career and his passion for helping animals. The park had become a special place for all three of them. Other regular visitors now recognized Jason and would wave or say hello when he arrived for his visits with Robert and Charlie. Children would sometimes ask for autographs, but Jason always made sure to spend time petting their dogs and talking about the importance of treating animals with kindness and respect. Jason used his celebrity platform to continue raising awareness about animal cruelty prevention. He spoke at several charity events for animal rescue organizations and donated significant amounts of money to help fund shelters and veterinary care for abused animals. The actor said that meeting Charlie and Robert had changed his perspective on using his fame for good causes. The three bullies, Jake, Mike, and Danny, faced serious consequences for their actions. They were each sentenced to 18 months in prison along with heavy fines and mandatory community service at animal shelters. The judge said their cruel behavior toward an innocent animal showed a disturbing lack of empathy that required serious intervention and punishment. Local elementary schools began inviting Jason to speak to children about kindness to animals and standing up against bullying. The actor enjoyed these visits and always brought photos of Charlie to show the students. Jason would tell them that real strength meant protecting those who were smaller and weaker rather than hurting them for entertainment. The bench where Charlie used to take his afternoon naps became a symbol of hope and kindness in the community. Animal lovers from around Los Angeles would visit Riverside Park to see the famous spot and leave flowers or dog treats as a tribute to Charlie's survival and Jason's heroism. The park became a gathering place for people who cared about animal welfare. A local artist created a beautiful bronze plaque that was installed near Charlie's favorite bench. The plaque featured a relief sculpture of a golden retriever surrounded by words that read, "Kindness is strength in action." Below that was a quote from Jason saying that true heroes are those who protect the innocent and vulnerable members of our community. Robert often sat by the plaque in the afternoons with Charlie resting peacefully beside him. The elderly man would watch families playing with their pets and feel grateful that his beloved companion had survived his ordeal and found such a wonderful protector in Jason. Robert knew that Maria would have loved meeting Jason and seeing how their story had inspired so many people. Jason continued his successful movie career, but always made time for his visits with Robert and Charlie. The actor said in interviews that some of his most meaningful moments happened not on movie sets, but sitting on a park bench, talking with an elderly man, while petting his golden retriever. The simple friendship had enriched all their lives in ways they never expected. Charlie lived happily for many more years, always surrounded by love and protection. He became something of a celebrity himself, with people recognizing him during walks and asking Robert to tell the story of how Jason Statham had saved him from the cruel bullies. Charlie seemed to enjoy the attention and would wag his tail proudly when people called him a good boy. The story of Jason, Robert, and Charlie became a lasting reminder that ordinary moments can become extraordinary when people choose kindness over cruelty and courage over fear. Their friendship showed that real heroes come in all forms and that sometimes the most important battles are fought not on movie screens, but in everyday situations where innocent creatures need someone to stand up and protect them from harm.